Welcome to my very last podcast under the name Catch Some Soulshine. I had some deep reflection and decided it was time for a name change. So the podcast will be featuring the same style. We will talk about healing modalities and creativity through the process of grief. The grief journey looks different over time, and this is something that you can infuse into your daily practices to live your life to the fullest. I'm having a special retreat Friday, November 15th. I invite anyone willing to come to Sarasota to please be there. I will have a link in the notes. And if you can't be there in person, I am going to allow you to join live. There's 2 options in the payment plan, so pick one of those. You don't want to miss it. It's full of transformative power. I feel community and being in this safe container is what healing is all about. If you have any questions, reach out to me personally on Facebook or Instagram, and I would be glad to answer any of your questions. But today we're going to meet with Pat Gorman, who is a psychic who my husband and I had met with after Bradley had passed, and he is very insightful and can tap into that energy from beyond. He also had his own personal struggles, so please hit that like button, subscribe button, and leave me some comments on the podcast. I look forward to rejoining you all next season with the new name, The Creative Grief Journey. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I am joined by Pat Gorman. I met you probably 5 years ago. You have this special ability to tap into energy from beyond, and I wanted to experience that. And since then, I've followed your journey on social media, and I realized that you had your own life tragedy. And, everybody thinks that grief is, when we first think about grief, we relate it to loss, death. Grief comes in so many different forms. And your grief journey, I think, is really going to be inspirational for people because you've had your own challenges. And I'd like you to introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about your story, and we'll get going.
Well, my name is Patrick Gorman. I have a business called Mediumship Patrick. I've been reading professionally for about 32 years. I've had a gift since before I could even remember. I do a lot of one-on-one readings. Either I meet with them in person or I meet with them via the internet. Sometimes I'll go out of state if I need to, because I do paranormal investigation. I also do home cleansings, kind of last rites in some way also, because some people, their loved ones had dementia and they're in hospice, they're going to pass. They don't necessarily know how to communicate. Been doing that for probably the last 6 or 7 years, more and more. I just think that's because there's so much that people want to say
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to miss out.
Right. I know that's why we sought you out, because we had lost Bradley, and I never really had an interest in psychic mediums until that time. And then I really did want to have some sort of communication. And boy, I am a believer because I know that they communicate with us.
Oh yeah, they definitely do. And, it can be anything from a bird or an insect, those special things that you don't really realize that's happening because it's happening right there. Can be a loved one trying to get a hold of you, trying to reach out, say, hey, I'm here to help, or don't take that job. It's just going to be bad news for you. Don't do that. So I would probably say a good 60-70% of my clientele, they start off as non-believers. And then they see what it can do, and then they're right there. When can I call you next? When can I come see you next? And that gives me a good feeling because then I'm happy that I'm helping somebody.
You're like a conduit.
Yeah, a lot of my readings end up being kind of mini counseling session too. It's not just focused on who's coming through or if they had a message. A lot of spirits, energy. It's not necessarily a message that you're going to understand right then and there.
Mhm.
But, you're driving home from a reading and all of a sudden this does make sense. Or maybe it was somebody else trying to reach out. Or just because the reading ends doesn't mean that that person, that energy, that spirit isn't following me home, where I'm writing everything down from that reading, things that came through, things maybe I would understand.
Absolutely.
I know.
I love that you use the word energy because I do too. I believe everything is
Oh,
energy.
yeah.
We are energy, and energy doesn't die.
No, it doesn't.
It just transforms or travels
Mhm.
somewhere else. And I feel that's the same with the human
Yeah.
experience, the soul, whatever you want to call it. And to have that gift, you said you had it from very young.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first discovered you had this gift?
I would probably say right around 1989. So I would say it's right around the same time I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And that kind of was a huge emotional event for me because I'm thinking diabetes is just because you're overweight. And I wasn't. I was very skinny as a kid until I got diabetes and started gaining weight. It was right around like 6 or 7.
Mm.
I would have a lot of dreams that were kind of very strange and vi- vivid at that point in time, but I didn't understand them. I had some family that would do like tea leaf readings and things like that. Those experiences, once I started talking more about it, people would say, "Oh, you're psychic. Yeah, that's got to be what it is. It can't be, anything else." And of course, you get, the strange doctors that think that you're schizophrenic or have some mental illness, and that, they always say take a pill, it'll help you. In those cases, took a pill and never would fix it.
Yeah.
But it's because that wasn't the problem. I never see it as a problem. Other than you're out with friends or family and all of a sudden energy or spirit comes around and they want to talk because they notice that you can see them. Those are kind of strange. But
Mm.
it's also kind of like I'm off. I'm not scheduled to work today, people. Yeah, I'm here enjoying the time with my family. I don't want to talk to you. But at the same time, it's like, well, who does that energy belong to? And then it's kind of like, nobody else is here. Why are they bothering me? Why is this energy here? Why is it pushing me towards this direction? You don't want to go straight. You want to go left or right. Those
Mhm.
experiences happens often, but I can also protect myself against bad energy and stuff like that. So it's all.
So let's get into you have diabetes, and with diabetes comes other risks. And unfortunately for you, you suffered one of those,
Yeah.
I guess, risks are associated with diabetes, but I'm sure that had a huge impact on your whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to share about that experience?
Sure. About 3 years ago, it, it happened because of another experience, too. Do you want me to start there? So,
Yeah.
about 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, 2B. So basically, we found it really early, and it was because of so many pancreatitis issues And yeah, I was type 1 diabetic, so the pancreas isn't working well anyways. I was having it almost, I would say, every month, like clockwork. So I was hospitalized for that. And then once they found the cancer, I went to 3 different surgeons that dealt with it. 2 of them, Cleveland Clinic, they both wanted to wait, see how the disease progressed. One of them, the one that I actually went with, he's like, I can do this. He's like, I go on vacation on Friday and I can do this, 2 days from now. Do you want to? Like, yes, I do. Go. During that surgery, though, I had some complications, which paralyzed both my arms from about the shoulders down, both, and I couldn't move them, couldn't feed myself, couldn't change, couldn't do anything for about 2 years with a lot of physical therapy and rehabs over rehabs. I was able to get about 80% of my left and 60% of my right. I'm sorry, other way around. Right is 70 to 80%. Left is a lot less. But, during that surgery, and there, trust me, you can't feed yourself. You can't express yourself with your hands and arms and everything. That that starts the grief too.
Right.
It's very difficult because then you're doing 3 hours of physical therapy every single day, 5 or 6 days a week in a rehab facility. It's not just losing the ability to move, you're losing the ability to communicate,
Right.
even with the nurses, doctors, family. There's a lot less phone calls being made, a lot less people visiting. Everybody has a life. After that surgery and after the whole rehab and everything, I got to the point where I could feed myself, I could drive again. I still have like a turning knob of my steering wheel, so I can drive with some assistance. Things are going great. Started doing readings again, and then I started having an issue with my right foot. So I went to see a podiatrist. He cut a little too deep. He was removing a piece of skin on the bottom of my foot, and that started an infection. If you have surgery to remove your pancreas, they also take your spleen, some of your stomach, some of your guts. Infections and having no spleen means this infection is going to do a lot more damage than normal. So I ended up having a foot amputation, and that didn't stop the infection. Then we did a below the knee. I was sent home. I fell a few more times. It happened because you're so used to being able to walk, being able to stand up. You have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and you're going, and then you come back. And for me, you just forget. It's very common for people that have any amputations of their leg, feet, even your hands. You're so used to how things used to be. Well, as I kept falling, and they call it a residual limb, that just wasn't healing correctly. They ended up going back 2 months later, making it an above them, which makes it 1,000 times harder to do basically everything that you're used to do. If you had it below the knee, it's a quick put the prosthetic on and start walking. Below the knees, your gait changes, everything changes.
You don't have that flexibility.
Yeah, and you do need a prosthetic knee to be able to function. And the one I have at the moment, it's not a microprocessor, and that's our goal, but it isn't working the way that it's supposed to. It's very, very slow. My body wants to move in a lot faster pace. Like every one step that I'm making, I want to make 3 or 4. It's a huge issue if you ask me. But that happened about 3 years ago. So yeah.
So, what was your grief like during this
entire process? I mean, did it go up and down, or were you going down, or did you maintain a certain level
I
of
think a lot
hope?
of my friends and family are like, wow, you're really handling this okay. And deep down inside, I'm like, no, I'm not.
Mhm.
One thing might portray as being, he's all right. He's making jokes. But a lot of the time, when somebody is saying, is this diabetes related? That's the number one question. Necessarily wasn't. I didn't have any amputations because my blood sugars were too high or because I wasn't taking care of myself. I had
Mhm.
it because of the loss of the spleen. So that kind of brought grief, but also a lot of anger, not just towards other people, but even myself, because I'm like, well, why is it that this had to happen? I would say, even though it's been 3 years, I'm still daily dealing with grief. I'm very pro therapy. If you can't talk it out with a friend or a family member, you definitely need to reach out to a professional and see
Mhm.
if you can find somebody that deals with grief on a more professional basis, because there's so much that affects everyday living. Even going out to the grocery store and I'm walking from my car, get a cart, people will come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm so proud for you. Good job. You got out of the house today." And I'm like, of course I'm very nice and I say thank you. But in reality, I'm like, did I do we know each other? Did I say something wrong? Like, why are you approaching me and saying I'm proud of you? We don't know each other. And there's even been times that people come up to me and just try to assault me and things like that. I'm like, just here doing the same thing you're doing. I'm here getting
Mhm.
groceries for my family. Like, if I cut you off or something, I'm very sorry. Maybe I didn't see you. But there's no reason to attack another person. Do a
Well,
lot of grief too, because then it's like,
besides the counseling,
mhm.
what are some things that you have done to help you on this grief journey? Creativity, meditation, nature, music, the list goes on. But I know that people are pulled toward a certain modality or something. What is it that you use?
So I do a lot of journaling. Every morning I wake up. In the past, I would go straight to social media, see what's going on in the world. But now I sit there with a journal. I write down things that I want to be a part of. I do a lot of support group. I like to cook. There are a lot of things that I haven't been able to do yet. Like, I want to travel. I have a couple goals of doing some races and fundraisers. I've been getting back into work. That pretty much is kind of my life.
How did the grief that you have and are still experiencing? I've often said, we don't lose grief, we just learn how to carry it.
Yeah.
So, how did this grief experience affect your intuitive psychic abilities?
So once I had the amputation, I kind of started to shut things down business wise. It wasn't more because I didn't want to work. It was because I was afraid to go out in public. I was afraid of having to answer questions when they're asked. These are strangers. And I don't have to explain why I'm late, explain why I'm in a wheelchair, because I do use one if I'm, going to be on my feet for a long time or something like that. I would say I would make more of a joke out of it than truly show what is really on my mind. And if I do a reading out in public, if it's not at the client's house, I'm doing it at Gilbert's place in Bellevue. I have such a strong bond with Jack. I feel comfortable there. I feel like being able to support her business, because it is a requirement even if the client's not paying for it, that they are having a beverage
Mhm.
or a sandwich or whatever. That's pretty much, I mean, I've been more and more doing in person readings.
Do you feel this elevated your intuitive senses or made you more sensitive in some way?
Does make me sensitive more. I'm picking up on a lot more animals and things like that, where in the past they would show up, but the communication, the energy, and everything wasn't 100%.
Mhm.
So that I was, I've been thinking about adding that to everything else that I do. Kind of going back and forth on it though, because
Mhm.
I don't know what the expectation is with a client that wants to see something within their past.
Yeah.
And how can I make it more sense just to the client, but to myself? I want to be able to help the client as much as I can. If I'm not understanding it 100%, that's not helping the client.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think it would be a whole new way of communicating, like learning a new language.
It's very strange, very different. A lot of people ask me, like, well, do they just come up to you and start talking like a normal person? No, they don't speak, you know.
Mhm.
They make their noises, or they rub up against you, or they sit there and look at you like, what's going on? Those are the
Mhm.
things that are kind of like, well, what's that supposed to mean to you?
Mhm.
That's very strange to get into.
When you were at your lowest point, did you find messages coming directly for you? Did that?
Yeah, and I think that's why I took some time off. Not just because my body has changed, but a lot more family, mine, would come through. My dad came through, and he just passed away close to 10 years now, I think. But our relationship wasn't that great when he passed. He lived in a different state, and I would only call him if I needed something. But now it's like he's showing up more and more, and it's like he's doing it just to say, you're going to be okay.
Mhm.
You might be mad now, but things are going to get better. And I would probably say that they have.
Yeah.
Wearing my prosthetic more and more.
It's not that you love the experience of losing a lot of loved ones.
Mhm.
However, it has been such a beautiful lesson in life for me. I see things differently. I appreciate small moments better.
And you probably
And
recognize those small moments more and more.
yeah, I'm assuming it's the same with you,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
You know, if I'm driving and all of a sudden a song comes on the radio that reminds me of somebody, those experiences happen daily.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of, is this a sign or is this somebody trying to get a hold of me? And it's very funny because my wife would also, she's been finding more and more intuitive stuff herself. And
Mhm.
she's like, well, you got to teach me how to do this, help me figure these things out. And I'm like, I haven't had to teach somebody in 10 years, 15 years. This is going to be really difficult. But I mean, it's part of the job too. A lot of people say, why don't you do free readings and things like that? People need to understand that it's an exchange of energy.
Right. Exactly.
It's very taxing to the reader. Just like if you went to a 9 to 5 job,
Mhm.
you're actively doing things throughout the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When it comes to art, creativity, special gifts that we have, some people have this notion that I don't have to pay you,
Yeah.
but we live in an exchange based world.
Yes.
So, yeah, you are worth getting monetarily compensated. And I really believe that.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset thing. I had to work on that as I started my own little business. But if I were going to the doctor, I wouldn't think twice of paying. If I was going to go to the grocery store, I wouldn't say, those chickens just laid those eggs. Why can't you give them to me? Right? We pay people and we pay for services, we pay for items. So I truly believe that we have to honor our gifts and know our worth.
Exactly. And it does take time to figure out what that worth is.
Right.
When you find it and it makes sense to you, it should make sense to everybody else.
Yeah. I can say that I've been to a couple other psychic mediums, and every single time it has been an extremely positive experience. And it's helped me on my grief journey tremendously. So I encourage it. If you're curious, I would not hesitate to reach out and get a reading, because it has been some of the things I knew. It was like, they can't possibly know that. And so, yeah.
If you're booking an appointment with me, you either talk to my wife first, or I have another employee that does my bookings. So I know nothing but your first name. I always encourage people to bring objects and things like that. When I do a large group reading, like the one you attended, that can get very confusing very quickly, because you're up there, you're the one leading the conversation, and let's say that there's 10, 15 people, or 1,000, because I've done those auditorium ones too. It's like, okay, who does this belong to? Just because they're standing by a certain person or sitting next to him does not necessarily mean that that person's there for the person that's right next to him too.
Right.
And it's all energy work. It can be very draining on me, but in some cases it's even draining to the audience. But I always say, because you went to one or a psychic doesn't mean that you shouldn't be going to other ones too, because everybody picks up on different things.
Right.
And
That was my experience.
yeah, you definitely have to go in with the idea of, like, whatever comes to me or comes around me, I need to make it make sense to me, not necessarily what the other person's saying. Because, I mean, the readers, they can see one thing and, do you see butterflies? And they're like, no, that doesn't make sense. But in that room's going to understand butterflies. A lot of people say, well, that's kind of the gimmicky part of. It's not. I mean, it is like kind of like shooting in the dark. But once that connection is made, and I'm focusing more on the person it is meant for, it's a lot easier. And I think it's a lot easier for the people that are sitting there too.
I agree. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how do they get your information? Do you have a website?
I have a link tree,
Okay.
and that just has all my information on it. It's linktree / mediumship by Patrick.
Okay. I will have that in the show notes too. Yeah.
Google's mediumship by Patrick. I'm the one that pops up. That's
Okay.
my business, and it's registered through the state.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you.
It's been nice to talk to you, and I love what you're doing. I'm sending you lots of positive energy for your healing journey as well.
I do the same for you. You're fantastic, and I appreciate you reaching out to me.
All right. Thanks again. And hey, go catch some soul shine, everybody.